Well, ladies and gentlemen, we do have what seemingly is a very close 2024 election based off a lot of the polls in the swing states. I mean, there was a literal release of polls from a pollster that had like 6 of the 7 swing states tied, which obviously is not going to happen, but just in general, it is very close. However, we're seeing 2, possibly 3 swing states trend recently pretty heavily to Trump. And this is Real Clear Politics, just their overall average. They, have several big time pollsters. They really only use the big time pollsters. And you can look at them, you cannot look at them. I think in general, Real Clear Politics is kind of thought of as a solid average look at the composite in terms of how the polling is going. Although Real Clear Politics has been, in terms of all the polls that they use, underestimating Trump routinely in both 2020 and 2016. Maybe that changes in 2024, but if it changes, that would be the exception, not the rule, because the polls, especially in many of the swing states, let alone just the national election, although it was only a 1-point difference in 2016, we've seen them underestimate Trump. Now, in some of these states, the polls have been better in terms of how they poll Trump than others. But the 3 states I want to look at are Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina. These are all states right now that, if you look at Real Clear Politics, if we went into election night, Donald Trump would be the favorite in all of these states. He would be a clear favorite in Arizona. You're looking at Arizona poly market saying he's got like a 65% chance. North Carolina, it's at like a 62% chance. And Georgia, around similar. That's big. That's 16 electoral votes, and 11 electoral votes. You win Georgia, North Carolina, and then you take Arizona because it seems like they're kind of giving up Arizona. That sets up an amazing situation if you are Trump, to where you've got a potential in Virginia. You don't have to win it, but you've got that potential state there. You win Pennsylvania, you win the election. You win Wisconsin, you win the election. You really just have to take one of these states, and you would easily be there. I actually think, you would have to take one of those states. The dream thing would be Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. You automatically win. It doesn't matter, but it does seem like Trump's also going to win Arizona. I've also heard liberals starting to lash out about Arizona. It seems like for sure they're going to lose that state. But let's look at the just average overall polls, beginning with Arizona. And this is the type of stuff I'm talking about. So what you're seeing is September 28th, 2024 versus September 28th of 2020. So this day in 2020, Biden was up by 3.5. Trump is sitting +2. That's with the 3-point Bloomberg outlier, which is probably affecting it by a full point. So Trump's real polling average in this is probably up by about 3 in Arizona, which basically every single poll saying Trump is at least up by 1. The more recent polls, you've got a +5, you've got a +2, you've got a +3, you've got a +6. So you're looking at a margin in between 3 and 5 points right now in Arizona, and all of the betting reflects it. Poly market reflects it. But overall, just taking a look at this is very good. Trump maybe around 49% to 46%, a 3-point victory in Arizona if you don't factor in the Bloomberg outlier, which, you can do some things when you look at some of these polls, especially these liberal pollsters like Bloomberg. Their numbers are just erroneous. It's false data. It's not correct. Quinnipiac did this in 2020, and I said it in 2020. Their polls were going to be way off, and of course their polls were way off. It's ridiculous. When you have an outlier that bad, it's really going to show up. So this is a state right now where Donald Trump is a big time, I wouldn't say big time, but I would say a solid favorite in Arizona. And it's 11 electoral votes. That's the first swing state I wanted to look at. Next, it is Georgia. Now, Georgia, this is a state where Kamala Harris and their campaign, they really want to win this state badly. They won it in 2020. I view the 2020 election and the win in Georgia as a total aberration that was mainly fueled by the pandemic and the mail-in situation and the ballot harvesting and the ridiculous turnout. That's not going to happen in 2024. You get less of a turnout in Georgia. It's going to bode very well for Trump. Not as many inner city people voting. You've got Trump right now sitting +1.5. The CBS News poll that just came out, look at all these new polls. You've got like 4 new polls here. You do have the Fox News outlier. People look at that and they say, wow, that's great for Harris. Well, Fox News has underestimated Trump. And on top of that, it really doesn't matter. It's an aggregate overall score. It's just one poll. When you factor in all the other polls, including CBS, including liberal pollsters, which are saying Trump is up, even Bloomberg saying it's tied. These are really good numbers for Trump. Rasmussen saying it's +3. You could say, well, they're a Republican pollster. Well, then you've got New York Times Siena with a +4. So Georgia is also looking very good for Trump. Not as good as Arizona, but still, with that Fox News poll, it comes down from like +2 to +1.5. Still very good. If we were going into election night like this would be an extremely good situation. If you look at this time in 2020, Trump was sitting +1.3. And then in 2016, this is obviously a state Trump won in 2016. He was sitting around +5. But you might be saying, well, if Trump was plus 1.3 and he lost the state, I believe he only lost it by 0.3 points anyways, but he's sitting basically the same. Why couldn't he lose it in 2024? I think it's a different environment, and it's really going to affect a state like Georgia where you're not dealing with the ridiculous voter turnout. And, I think that's going to help Trump win the state of Georgia. And also the fact that you're talking about losing the state by 0.3, and this is a Republican. It's not like this state has turned crazy liberal, right? You had it happen in 2020, the aberration. You've got Atlanta, you've got the hub there, and they were able to barely push Biden over the finish line. But we haven't seen this crazy migration. I mean, I think Georgia still is a Republican state. Yes, it's very close. It's a lot closer, but it's an SEC state. And it's a state I feel comfortable saying Trump is probably going to win by about 2.5, 3, maybe 4 points, honestly. And these polls to me reflect it. And most of these polls, Trump is winning. This is, Georgia, you could say maybe Trump doesn't overperform versus the polls. But when you've got stuff like this, you've really got to like where Trump is at this point in the state of Georgia as well. And then the final state we're looking at, it is North Carolina. And Trump is sitting at plus 1.4 in North Carolina. And you do have some very close polls. You do have a Rasmussen plus 3. You've got a CNN saying it's tied. You've got Bloomberg plus 2. But this is another state I do think Trump is doing pretty well. And especially you compare it to 2020, Biden was up by about 1. Trump ended up winning this state by about 1.3. So he overperformed that by like 2 points. If he's able to at least overperform this margin by 1 point, it's a very easy win. It's a 2.5 point victory for Trump. This is a state that Trump won in 2016 by 3.5 points. The Dems were able to cut into the lead. He won it by 1.5 points in 2020. So they're thinking, well, if the trend continues, then Harris will win it. It's certainly a close state, but based off of all the internal numbers and the favorability and everything like that, I do think Trump is poised. It's going to be close, but he's also poised to win North Carolina. And the polls recently, they do point to it as well, to where he's outperforming his 2020 numbers pretty easily. And so now you're sitting at, Trump plus 1.4 at this point in compared to where he was in 2020. 2016, obviously he did win by 3.5 points in 2016. So he outperformed this number, this 0.3 number, by about 3 points as well. So, I mean, you outperformed 2016 polls at this time by 3 points. You outperformed 2020 polls by about 2 points. Now you're up 1.4. Are we really going to see this crazy polling correction to where they overestimate Trump? It's not impossible, but it's not likely based on what we've seen, the way that pollsters poll Trump and how they underestimate him in some of these states, and North Carolina is no different. So I think these 3 states are all looking very good for Trump right now. Trump is leading in the polls in all of them. You could say Arizona around plus 3, both North Carolina and Georgia around plus 1.5. That's with a few annoying polls like the Bloomberg release, a Fox News poll. I mean, listen, I don't think Fox News is a terrible pollster or anything like that, but it's not like they're this crazy Republican pollster to where it's like, wow, the alarm bells need to go off when you factor in all the other polls. I mean, if every poll was saying Harris was up by 3 in, Georgia, it would be an issue. But all the other polls are saying Trump is leading or it's very close to being tied. That's why Trump leads the aggregate overall average, according to Real Clear Politics. So this is a clear shift from what we've seen in 2020 and 2016, especially in Arizona, along with North Carolina. See, this is the thing. North Carolina is a big talking point this election cycle. The reason is because in 2020, North Carolina was kind of a swing state, but it was really replaced with Florida. Everyone was like, oh, now Democrats are going to take back Florida. Florida was a pure swing state. That's not the case anymore. Florida is going to Trump. Ohio is going to Trump. And so the Democrats have to replace those states, and they're trying to do it with a North Carolina. And I'm not saying North Carolina is not a swing state, but you're hearing more and more about North Carolina this election cycle because they don't have a chance in Florida. They don't have a chance in Ohio. So they have to go elsewhere to get their electoral votes. And they go to a state like North Carolina. And I think Trump is sitting very good right now in North Carolina. It's going to be close, but I would say right now, North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona, based on even the polls, which we know they normally underestimate Trump, they're all trending to Trump, with Trump possibly taking Arizona by around 4 points. I wouldn't be shocked if that happened, 3 to 4 points. Georgia around 2 to 4. North Carolina around 2 to 4. Somewhere within that range, you would think, and that would put Trump right up against the 270 mark, where I think he would only need one more state, literally just one other state. I'm not sure if you could throw the Nebraska second, but it doesn't look good for the Nebraska second, to be honest, right now at this point. And then you can see the swing states. You do have Georgia with Donald Trump sitting right now around a 61% chance to win. Trump has been, let's take a look at the last month. So Trump has been up about 2 to 3% over the past month, but he's been the favorite for basically the last full month. He did drop down to around 54, 55%, but he's gone back up to around 60% over the last month. So Georgia looks pretty good for Trump at this point. Were the other states I was looking at? North Carolina, Trump's sitting at around a 56% chance. Yeah, it's going to be reflective off the polls. The polls are close, but I would say Trump, I'd have him a little bit higher than that, based off of, how polls normally grade him. It has been, Trump's been going down a little bit, although I will say the past month, I don't think he was at 64%. Now he's at 56%. I think Trump is looking good in North Carolina, honestly. I don't know why he would be going down. That makes no sense. The recent polls have been really good out of North Carolina. And then Arizona, Trump sitting at a 64%. A lot of this is probably the rumors that people within Harris's campaign don't think Arizona is going to happen, and they're not going to allocate a lot of resources there. That could be it as well. But Trump has been trending up pretty decently the past month. He started the month 55% chance. He's up about 10% to around 65% chance. So you're looking at those three states, at least a 55% chance, and all of them, according to the betting, two of the states over a 60% chance. And so this is basically it. You win these three states, you just need one more. And these are looking very, very good when you look at even the Real Clear Politics polling average. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.